My name is Dennis McNett here at the Fort Wayne Museum of Art, and this is the installation for the skate park portion of The Art of the Skateboard, curated by Joseph Zimmerman. I think skateboard art definitely belongs in a museum, and it's been a long time coming because the list of artists that it's inspired is very long. It's inspired so many people on so many different levels, not just like the skate graphics, just like the whole aesthetic of skateboarding. It's creative in its nature. Like, you know, you give a kid a board in a piece of plywood and a brick, and they're going to come up with some kind of way to skateboard with it. Or they're going to go into any kind of architecture and look at it, and they're going to see it completely different than somebody that's going to work. They're going to go, oh my God, look at the rail on those steps, or look at that freshly painted curb. I bet you slide across that so easily, you know. Or to answer your question, it absolutely belongs in a museum. From not just from the graphics, but from the entire aesthetic of skateboarding and the whole idea of it. There's definitely a big difference between doing a skate graphic that's, you know, 8.5 by 32 inches or whatever, you know, the board size that you're working with is, and then doing a 3,000 square foot with, what is this, 25, 30 foot ceilings, and fill it. It's a very different process. So if I'm doing a big warehouse for, say, like Vans, a music venue, it's usually like part skate park, part music venue. So it's okay to just go in there and kind of make a mess and just screw screws into things and just tie things off, or you know, paint something that's disposable. Or for something like this, especially, there was parameters like you know, couldn't go nuts on the walls because it's a museum. You know, I tried to think of different ways to bring all that imagery into the space and have enough stuff to activate the entire space and not just little parts of it. So we, you know, did these cutouts of the characters, and you know, filled it with backdrops and just tried to activate it with sculptural pieces and 2D pieces, and consider all the obstacles as well, like the outer surfaces. So, you know, some artists, when they go to do, say, a mural, they take a bin of spray paint with them. What I take with me is I take a suitcase of prints. So I'll print up a bunch of woodcut patterns that I have at the studio, and the prints are just printed on butcher paper. The butcher paper, when it's wet with gel medium, it becomes malleable, so I can use it on three-dimensional objects, and it also dries and sticks on, you know, flat surfaces. So I can alter a space pretty quickly just with a suitcase full of prints. I blew up the woodcuts to fit 8-foot panels, and then used those as cutouts, did them all hand painted, and then I brought out sculptures that the museum already had, was able to use those in the installation, and then also brought a big puppet for the big cool vortex that those guys made. But when I'm working on a space like that, it's like I have to stand in there. Like, but when I was in there with the ramps, it's like, it's more like reacting to what's there. It's like, oh, there's a plate behind the A-frame ramp with the rail. What if that was round and that was the sun? The wall was already blue. Let's make that's the daytime. And then the opposite wall, let's make that protection plate the moon. Let's trick that out and look like the moon will have bats, and that'll be like the night. The title of it's a Canyon of Wolfbat. So I brought a backdrop that had, like, you know, canyons and mountains to kind of create the canyon vibe, and painted mountains on the outside of the ramps, and then did cutouts with plastic and woodcut patterns to create mountains around the perimeter of the walls, and then brought this foliage to kind of go into the vortex. I got into skateboarding in the early 80s. I think I was about 12 years old when I got my first skateboard. And all the graphics on the bottom of the boards and all of the stuff that I was seeing in Thrasher magazine, that was the imagery that I was into. And if you look at, like, the early Cortland, Johnson, Powell, Peralta graphics, they're lino cuts, and I had no idea. So when I went to community college and I saw the first print I'd ever seen pulled off of a block, it looked exactly like all the imagery that I was into. right? So I started to do woodcut prints. But all of that imagery, all of the stuff coming out of Thrasher magazine, that's a huge cultural influence for a lot of people. And still to this day, I mean, most of my closest friends are affiliated with skateboarding in some way, and I still love doing skate graphics. And to me, like all the animal imagery relates to skateboarding like that. It's like this raw, natural energy that that gets expelled in a very expressive way. So like the skateboard, like you have that nice graphic on the bottom, and then like you get the fresh board and you don't want to scratch it up, but then you get that first scratch and then it's like okay to kind of mess it up. And I think skateboarding, the artwork and the graphics have always been disposable in a sense. So to see these obstacles, knowing that they're going to get torn up a bit, and knowing that the artwork that I took time to put on the outside of it is going to get scuffed up, it's going to get torn up a bit. That's all part of it, and I'm okay with it, and I've always been okay with it since I was 12 or 13. That's why, like, when I do some of these performative things, I'm totally fine with putting in months and months of work on it and then burning it at the end, because it's like you had to be there to experience it. I think all that kind of stems from not wanting to scratch that graphic on the bottom of the board to what I'm doing now.